Hey there everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a serious and important topic, the 10 most racist places in America. Now before you hit that comment section, I want to acknowledge that this is a complex issue, and there's no perfect way to quantify or rank racism. Instead, we're aiming to shed light on places where systemic racism and discrimination continue to deeply impact people's lives. We'll be exploring the legacies of slavery, segregation, and discriminatory policies that continue to shape these places today. Despite decades of progress, racism remains a persistent issue. It's important to remember that racism isn't confined to certain geographic locations. Let's explore these places and understand the challenges they face. Our first stop takes us to the Lone Star State, a place known for its vastness and diversity. Texas has a rich history, but it's also one marked by racial tensions. From the legacy of slavery and segregation to present-day struggles for equality, Texas exemplifies the complexities of race in America. The state shares a long border with Mexico, and its demographics reflect that. However, Texas has also implemented some of the strictest immigration laws in the country, which have disproportionately impacted Latino communities. These laws, often justified in the name of security, have fueled racial profiling and discrimination. Texas is a state of contradictions, a place where progress and prejudice often collide. Our journey takes us to Arkansas, often overlooked in discussions about race in America. From the Elaine Massacre to the Little Rock Nine, Arkansas has seen both racial hatred and resilience. These events cast a long shadow over Arkansas. The state grapples with racial disparities in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. Hate crimes are on the rise, targeting black residents. Arkansas faces an uphill battle in building a more just future. Our next stop takes us to North Carolina, a state that has become a battleground in the fight for voting rights. In recent years, North Carolina has made headlines for its controversial voter ID laws and other measures that critics argue are designed to suppress minority votes. Studies have shown that they disproportionately disenfranchise Black and Latino voters, who are less likely to have the required forms of identification. The fight over voting rights in North Carolina is about more than just access to the ballot box. When certain groups are systematically denied that right, it undermines the very principles of equality and justice. The struggle for voting rights in North Carolina is a reminder that the fight for civil rights is far from over. We now head west to Arizona, a state known for its stunning desert landscapes and its increasingly heated debates about immigration. Arizona has become a focal point in the national immigration debate, with its controversial laws and policies drawing both praise and condemnation. One of the most well-known examples is Arizona SB 1070, a law that allowed law enforcement officers to request proof of citizenship from anyone they suspected of being in the country illegally. This law, which was widely criticized as discriminatory, led to racial profiling and widespread fear within Latino communities. Arizona's approach to immigration has come at a cost, tarnishing the state's reputation and fueling racial tensions. Our journey through America's most racist places takes us next to Tennessee, a state with a long and complicated history when it comes to race. Tennessee has a long history of segregated schools, and while legal segregation may be a thing of the past, the reality is that many schools remain deeply segregated along racial lines. This segregation is often driven by factors like housing patterns and economic disparities, but it has a profound impact on the educational opportunities available to students of color. Schools in predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods often lack the resources, funding, and experienced teachers found in more affluent, predominantly white schools. This disparity in educational opportunities perpetuates a cycle of inequality, limiting the life chances of countless students of color. We continue our exploration in Georgia, a state with a troubled past. From its origins as a colony built on slavery to the civil rights battles, Georgia's history is deeply intertwined with racial justice. The echoes of this past are still felt today, especially in the fight over voting rights. Georgia has been at the forefront of efforts to restrict voting access, implementing strict voter ID laws. These measures are widely condemned as modern-day voter suppression tactics. The fight for voting rights in Georgia shows the struggle for equality is far from over. Our journey takes us next to Louisiana, a state known for its vibrant culture, but also for its deep-seated racial divisions. The legacy of slavery and segregation continues to cast a long shadow over Louisiana. The state has one of the highest rates of poverty in the nation, and those living in poverty are disproportionately black and brown. Louisiana also grapples with the legacy of mass incarceration. The state has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, and a disproportionate number of those behind bars are black men. Louisiana faces a long and difficult road to healing its racial divides. Our exploration of racism in America takes us to Alabama, a state that has often found itself at the heart of the struggle for racial justice. From the brutal era of slavery to the iconic civil rights marches of the 1960s, Alabama has witnessed both the darkest chapters of America's racial history and the courageous fight for equality. The legacy of this struggle is palpable in Alabama, where the scars of the past are still visible in the present. The state continues to grapple with racial disparities in areas like education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. One of the most enduring symbols of Alabama's racial divide is the Confederate flag, which still flies on state grounds. Alabama's journey towards racial justice is far from over. Our journey takes us to Mississippi, a state indelibly marked by its history of racial oppression. From the brutality of slavery to the violent resistance to the civil rights movement, Mississippi carries the weight of a past that continues to shape its present. Mississippi was once known as the most segregated state in America, and while legal segregation may be a thing of the past, the legacy of this era lingers. The state still grapples with racial disparities in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. Mississippi has the highest incarceration rate in the United States, and a disproportionate number of those behind bars are black men. Mississippi faces a long and arduous journey towards racial reconciliation. Our final stop takes us to South Carolina, a state whose history is inextricably linked to the story of race in America. From its origins as a colony built on the backs of enslaved Africans to the present day, South Carolina has grappled with the legacy of racism. South Carolina has been at the forefront of efforts to restrict voting rights, implementing measures like strict voter ID laws and gerrymandering. These tactics are widely seen as attempts to suppress the black vote and maintain racialized political power. The fight for voting rights in South Carolina is a stark reminder that the struggle for racial justice is far from over. That brings us to the end of our journey through some of America's most racist places. These 10 states are just a snapshot of a much larger issue that pervades every corner of the United States. Racism is not confined to specific geographic locations, it's woven into the very fabric of our society. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem, but it's important to remember that change is possible. Every single one of us has a role to play in dismantling systemic racism and creating a more just and equitable society. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. See you next time.